The Wraith slipped through space like a shadow. Its engines were silent, running on technology the Coalition had banned 50 years ago. Too effective, they had said. Too dangerous. But Jake did not care about their rules anymore. The ship was small, barely large enough for 7 people and their equipment. But it was fast and invisible to every sensor the Krell possessed. Greg sat in the pilot's seat, his hands moving over the controls with practiced ease. His eyes never left the navigation screen. They were 3 days into Krell territory now, deep behind enemy lines. One mistake and they would be discovered. One wrong move and they would die. Sensor contact, Ryan said from the communications station. Krell patrol ship heading our way. Greg's fingers danced across the controls. The Wraith systems adjusted automatically, bending sensor waves around the hull. To the patrol ship, they would look like empty space. Nothing to see, nothing to worry about. The patrol ship passed within 1,000 meters. Through the window, Jake could see its ugly shape. All angles and armor, built for war and nothing else. It continued on its route, unaware that death had just slipped past it. Clear, Ryan said after a minute. We are good. Kate stood up from her seat and stretched. She had been sitting still for hours watching the screens. How much longer? 6 hours to the station, Greg replied. Then another hour to find a docking port they are not watching. Danny was in the back of the ship organizing his explosives. He had brought enough to level a city block. Small charges for doors and walls, larger ones for structural supports, and one very large one, just in case they needed to destroy something important. He hummed softly while he worked, completely at ease. Lisa checked her medical supplies for the 3rd time. Bandages, painkillers, stimulants, antibiotics. Everything she might need to keep the team alive. She tried not to think about how small her bag looked compared to what they might face. 20,000 Krell warriors. She could not save anyone from those odds. Nina sat in perfect silence, her eyes closed. To anyone watching, she might seem asleep. But Jake knew better. She was meditating, preparing her mind and body for combat. Nina had learned long ago that fighting was not just physical. The mind had to be ready too, calm, focused, deadly. Jake moved through the ship, checking on each person. They were ready. He could see it in their eyes, in the way they moved. This was not their first dangerous mission. They had all walked into death before and walked back out. But this time felt different. This time the odds were worse than ever. Station in visual range, Greg announced. The main screen lit up with an image that made everyone stop and stare. The Krell command station was massive. It looked like someone had taken a giant insect and turned it into a building. Organic curves mixed with metal supports. Weapon platforms jutted out like spikes. Hundreds of ships moved around it like worker bees around a hive. That is the biggest station I have ever seen, Danny said quietly. 20,000 warriors, Kate said. Plus support staff, maybe 30,000 total. And we are 7, Lisa added. She did not sound scared, just stating a fact. Jake studied the station carefully. Ryan, scan for maintenance ports, something small that will not be heavily guarded. Ryan's fingers flew across his keyboard. Data streamed across his screen. Got one. Lower section port side. Looks like a waste disposal access. There is no guard posted, just automated sensors. Can you bypass the sensors? Jake asked. Already working on it, Ryan said with a grin. Give me 5 minutes. The Wraith drifted closer to the station, moving slowly to avoid detection. Greg's flying was perfect. Not too fast, not too slow. Just another piece of space debris floating past. Around them, Krell ships moved on their patrol routes. None of them looked twice. Sensors are looped, Ryan said. They will show an empty port for the next 30 minutes. After that, the system will realize something is wrong. 30 minutes, Jake repeated. Not a lot of time. It is enough, Greg said. He brought the Wraith in smoothly, matching the rotation of the station. The docking clamps engaged with a soft thud. We are attached. Everyone stood and grabbed their equipment. Rifles, ammunition, knives, explosives. Each person carried what they needed. They moved with practiced efficiency, checking weapons and making sure everything was ready. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. Jake led them to the airlock. Through the window he could see the maintenance port. It was dark inside, lit only by emergency lights. He could smell something strange through the air filters. The Krell station had a different atmosphere than human ships. Thicker, warmer. It made his skin crawl. Masks on, he ordered. Everyone pulled on breathing masks. The air would not kill them, but it was better to be safe. Danny cut through the port door with a plasma torch. The metal glowed red, then white, then fell inward with a crash. They moved inside quickly. The corridor was empty. Walls made of some organic material that felt wrong under Jake's hands. The floor was uneven, like walking on bone. Red lights pulsed slowly, casting strange shadows. "Which way?" Kate whispered. Ryan checked his computer. He had stolen the station's layout from their communication systems. "Command center is up 17 levels. We need to find an access shaft." They moved through the corridors like ghosts. Jake took point, his rifle up and ready. Kate covered the rear. Nina and Danny moved along the sides, checking corners and doorways. Lisa and Ryan stayed in the middle, protected by the others. Greg remained behind on the ship, ready to fire up the engines at a moment's notice. The station was surprisingly quiet. They passed storage rooms full of weapons and supplies, living quarters where Krell warriors slept in pods that hung from the ceiling, engineering spaces with machines that hummed and pulsed with alien energy. But they saw no one. "Too quiet," Danny muttered. "Where is everyone?" "Shift change," Ryan said, reading from his computer. "Most of the warriors are in the barracks or at their posts. This section is maintenance. No reason for anyone to be here." They found an access shaft exactly where Ryan said it would be. A vertical tunnel that led up through the station. Jake looked up into the darkness and saw movement. Red eyes staring down. "Contact," he said quietly. The Krell warrior dropped from above, its body unfolding like a nightmare. 8 feet tall, covered in black armor plates that grew from its skin, 4 arms, each ending in claws as long as knives. Mandibles clicked together, making a sound like grinding metal. It reached for Jake. Kate's rifle cracked once. The warrior's head exploded in a spray of green blood. It fell backward, dead before it hit the ground. The entire engagement took less than a second. "More above," Nina said, her voice calm. She counted quickly. 4, maybe 5. Jake did not hesitate. "Up the shaft. Fast." They climbed quickly, using hand and footholds built into the walls. Above them, the Krell warriors descended to meet them. Jake could hear their claws scraping against metal. Their breathing sounded like steam escaping from pipes. The first warrior reached him. It was fast, faster than anything that large should be. Its claws swiped at his face. Jake ducked and fired his rifle point blank into its chest. The rounds punched through armor and flesh. The warrior screamed and fell. Nina moved past him like lightning. She jumped from the wall, using her momentum to drive her knife into another warrior's eye. It shrieked and tried to shake her off. She held on, twisting the blade deeper. The warrior went limp and they fell together. Nina rolled as they hit the floor, coming up ready for the next fight. Kate climbed past them both, her rifle firing steadily. 1 shot, 1 kill. 2 shots, 2 kills. She did not miss. She never missed. By the time Jake reached the top of the shaft, 5 Krell warriors lay dead below them. "Clear," Kate said. Danny pulled himself up last. He looked at the bodies and whistled softly. "Nice work." Jake checked his watch. They had been inside the station for 8 minutes. 22 minutes until the sensors reset. They needed to move faster. "Let's go." They ran through the corridors now, no longer trying to hide. Speed was more important than stealth. They passed more rooms, more equipment, more sleeping warriors. The station seemed endless. How could anything be this big? Alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed faster. A voice spoke in the Krell language, harsh and grating. Ryan translated quickly. They found the bodies. "Station is going to full alert." "How far to the command center?" Jake asked. 3 levels, maybe 5 minutes if we run. Then we run. Behind them, they could hear the sound of many feet. The Krell warriors were coming. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The hunt had begun. And Jake's team was the prey, or so the Krell thought. The stars looked different through the window of the Coalition flagship. Jake Morrison stood alone in the observation deck, watching distant suns blink in the darkness. He had been in space for 3 years now, but the view never got old. Behind him, the door opened with a soft hiss. He did not turn around. He knew who it was. Admiral Vexthor walked slowly across the metal floor. His claws clicked with each step. The reptilian commander was twice Jake's size, covered in green scales that gleamed under the artificial lights. He stopped a few feet away and stared out at the stars. "You know why I am here," the Admiral said. His voice came through a translator device on his chest. It made his words sound flat and emotionless. Jake nodded. "The Krell." "Yes. The Krell." Vexthor's tail swished behind him, a sign of worry in his species. They have taken 4 systems in 6 weeks. Our forces cannot stop them. They do not follow the rules. They do not honor our traditions. They simply kill and take what they want. Jake had watched the reports. The Krell Dominion had appeared from beyond known space like a nightmare. Giant insect warriors with no mercy and no fear. They swarmed over planets like locusts, consuming everything. The Coalition had tried to negotiate. The Krell killed the diplomats. The Coalition sent fleets to push them back. The Krell destroyed those fleets. What does the Council want from me? Jake asked. Vexthor was quiet for a long moment. They want you to do what you do best. They want the Reaper. Jake turned to face the Admiral. His expression did not change. They want me to kill someone. The Krell Supreme Commander. Overlord Zarketh. He commands from a station deep in their territory. If he dies, their military structure will collapse. They will fight among themselves for power. We can retake the lost systems while they are divided. How many ships will you give me? Jake asked. None. Vexthor turned his large head to look down at Jake. This must be secret. A small team, 6 or 7 at most. Get in, kill the Overlord, get out. If you are caught, the Coalition will deny everything. Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. A suicide mission? Yes, the Admiral admitted. The Council debated for days. Some said it was too dangerous. Others said it was our only hope. In the end, they decided to ask you. If you refuse, no one will blame you. When do we leave? Jake asked. Vexthor's scales seemed to ripple. In his species, that meant surprise. You accept? Just like that? No questions about resources or support. I have one question, Jake said. Can I choose my own team? Yes, anyone you want. Then I accept. Jake walked past the Admiral toward the door. I will need 3 days to gather my people. Have a stealth ship ready. He left the Admiral standing alone in the observation deck, staring after him. Vexthor had worked with many warriors from many species. But humans were different. They did not hesitate. They did not show fear. They simply accepted death as part of the mission and moved forward. It was terrifying. Jake went to his quarters and opened a secure communication channel. One by one, he contacted the people he needed. All of them were human. All of them had served with him before. All of them had seen war. Kate Sullivan was first. She was on a training station near Mars, teaching new recruits how to shoot. When Jake's face appeared on her screen, she knew immediately why he was calling. She did not ask questions. She simply said where and when. Her cold blue eyes showed no emotion. Kate had killed 47 enemy combatants in Earth's last war. Each shot had been perfect. Each target had died instantly. She was the best sniper Jake had ever known. Danny Cruz was harder to find. He was working on a mining colony in the asteroid belt, setting demolition charges to break apart rocks for ore. The job was boring and he hated it. When Jake explained the mission, Danny laughed. Finally, he said. Something interesting. Danny had a wild streak that scared most people. He liked explosions a little too much. But Jake trusted him completely. When things needed to blow up, Danny was the man to call. Lisa Chen was serving on a medical ship, treating injured colonists from the outer systems. She had tried to leave military life behind after the war. Too much death, she had said. Too many bodies that she could not save. But when Jake asked, she closed her eyes and nodded. I knew you would call eventually, she said quietly. I will be ready. Lisa had steady hands and a strong heart. She could perform surgery under fire without flinching. Jake needed someone who could keep his team alive. Ryan Briggs was the youngest of the group. At 23, he had already made a name for himself in military intelligence. He could hack any system, break any code, and spoof any sensor. He was currently working at Coalition headquarters, analyzing enemy communications. When Jake's message came through, Ryan grinned. About time, he typed back. I was getting bored. Greg Simmons was flying cargo ships between Earth and Jupiter. He was 52 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. Most people thought he should retire. But Greg could fly anything with wings or thrusters. He had flown combat missions during Earth's war, escaping situations that should have been impossible. When Jake called, Greg rubbed his face and sighed. I told myself I was done with this, he said. Then he smiled. But I suppose one more mission will not kill me. Nina Rodriguez was the last person Jake contacted. She was working as a bodyguard for a human diplomat on a coalition world. Nina was small and fast, with reflexes that seemed almost superhuman. In close combat, she was deadly. Jake had seen her take down 5 armed soldiers in less than 10 seconds using only a knife. When his call came through, Nina was in the middle of a security briefing. She stepped out of the room, listened to Jake for 30 seconds and said, "I will be there in 2 days." Then she went back inside and quit her job. 3 days later, all 6 of them gathered on a coalition military station called Haven's Edge. The station orbited a dead planet on the edge of known space. It was old and quiet, the kind of place where secrets could be kept. Jake met them in a conference room deep in the station's interior. No windows, no recordings, just 7 humans and a dangerous plan. Jake stood at the head of the table and looked at each person. Kate sat with her arms crossed, her face blank. Danny was grinning, already thinking about explosives. Lisa looked nervous but determined. Ryan was typing on a portable computer, probably already hacking into something. Greg leaned back in his chair, looking older than his years. Nina sat perfectly still, like a coiled spring ready to release. "Thank you for coming," Jake said. "You all know why we are here. The Krell are destroying the coalition. Thousands are dying every day. The Council has tried everything. Nothing works. So now they turn to us. They want us to sneak into Krell territory, infiltrate their command station, and kill their leader." "Sounds simple," Danny said with a laugh. "It is a suicide mission," Jake continued. "The station has over 20,000 Krell warriors. The coalition says our chances of success are less than 5%. Our chances of survival are even lower." The room was silent. Then Kate spoke. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow night," Jake said. "We have a stealth ship called the Wraith. It can get us past their sensors. Once we are inside the station, we are on our own. No backup, no rescue. Just us." Nina leaned forward. "What are the rules of engagement?" Jake's expression was cold. "There are no rules. The Krell do not follow the Coalition's laws of war. Neither will we. We do whatever it takes to complete the mission. If that means killing everyone on that station, so be it." Greg nodded slowly. "So we are going back to the old ways. Human ways." "Yes," Jake said. "The Coalition wants us to be civilized. They want us to follow their rules and fight their way. But their way does not work against the Krell. So we fight like humans. We adapt, we improvise. We win." Lisa looked down at her hands. "A lot of people are going to die." "Yes," Jake agreed. "But if we succeed, we save millions. Maybe billions. The galaxy will call us monsters. They will say we were too brutal, too violent, too human. Let them. We know what we are. We are survivors." He looked around the table one more time. "Anyone want to back out?" No one moved. No one spoke. They had all made their choice before coming here. They were soldiers. This was what they did. "Good," Jake said. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we go hunting." The corridors became a nightmare of violence. Krell warriors poured from every doorway, their claws scraping against metal floors. They were fast and strong, bred for war. But they were not prepared for humans who fought without rules. Danny tossed a grenade behind them. The explosion was deafening in the enclosed space. Shrapnel tore through armor and flesh. The warriors screamed in pain, but more came to replace them. Always more. Kate moved backward while firing, her shots precise even while running. She aimed for weak points in their armor, the joints where plates met. Each bullet found its mark. Warriors fell, ichor pooling on the floor. But still they came. Nina stayed at the rear, her knife flashing in the red light. Any warrior that got close died instantly. She was too fast for them, too skilled. They could not understand how something so small could be so deadly. Their confusion was the last thing they felt. Jake led them forward, his rifle firing in controlled bursts. He did not aim for individual targets. Instead, he shot at structural supports, door controls, anything that would slow the enemy down. A support beam collapsed, crushing 3 warriors. A door slammed shut, trapping a dozen more behind it. He turned everything into a weapon. "Left corridor," Ryan shouted, reading his map. 50 meters to the command center. They turned the corner and found themselves facing a wall of warriors. 20 at least, all armed with plasma rifles. The Krell opened fire immediately. Bright green bolts filled the air. Jake's team dove for cover behind support columns and equipment. "Danny," Jake said, "we need a path." Danny grinned and pulled out a rectangular charge. "Fire in the hole." He threw it in a high arc. The charge landed in the middle of the warriors and stuck to the floor. They had 2 seconds to realize what it was. Not enough time to run. The explosion was massive. It tore through the warriors like paper. Body parts flew in every direction. The walls cracked. The floor buckled. When the smoke cleared, nothing moved in that corridor. Path clear, Danny said cheerfully. They ran through the carnage. Lisa tried not to look at the bodies. There was nothing she could do for them anyway. They were the enemy. They had tried to kill her team. But they had also been living things, and now they were not. The thought made her stomach twist. The command center doors were massive, made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. 2 warriors stood guard outside, elite soldiers by the look of their armor. They raised their weapons when they saw Jake's team approaching. Kate shot the first one through the eye. Nina threw her knife at the second, catching it in the throat. Both guards fell. The team did not break stride. They had to keep moving. Every second mattered now. Danny placed charges on the door while the others covered him. His hands moved quickly, placing explosives at precise points. "This is going to be loud," he warned. "Do it," Jake ordered. They backed away. Danny triggered the charges remotely. The explosion blew the doors inward, metal screeching as it tore apart. Before the smoke cleared, Jake's team was moving inside. The command center was huge. Screens covered the walls, showing views of space, enemy fleets, conquered worlds. Equipment hummed and beeped. But Jake only had eyes for the figures waiting in the center of the room. 20 elite warriors formed a circle around their leader. They were bigger than normal Krell, their armor thicker and darker. These were the best of the best, chosen to protect the Supreme Commander with their lives. In the center of the circle stood Overlord Zarketh. He was massive, nearly 10 feet tall. His armor was black as space, etched with symbols that glowed red. 4 eyes stared at the humans with cold intelligence. His mandibles clicked slowly, making a sound like bones breaking. "You dare enter my domain?" The translator device made his voice sound like grinding stones. "You dare face the might of the Krell?" Jake did not answer. He raised his rifle and fired. The elite warriors moved instantly, their bodies blurring with speed. They charged forward as one, weapons ready. The battle began. Kate's rifle sang a deadly song. Each shot dropped a warrior, but there were so many. Danny threw grenades that exploded in flashes of light and fire. Nina danced through the chaos, her new knife finding gaps in armor. Lisa stayed back, her pistol cracking as she covered the others. Jake moved forward steadily. Warriors tried to stop him, but he cut through them like they were nothing. Years of training, years of combat, years of survival, all of it focused on one goal. Reach the Overlord. Kill the Overlord. End this war. An elite warrior grabbed him from behind. Its claws dug into his armor. Jake reversed his rifle and fired over his shoulder. The warrior's grip loosened. He spun and slammed his rifle into its face. Bone cracked. The warrior fell. Another warrior came from the side. Nina intercepted it, her small form a blur of motion. She jumped on its back and drove her knife down through the gap in its neck armor. The warrior collapsed. She rolled off and was already moving toward the next target. Danny threw his last grenade. It landed perfectly among a group of warriors. The explosion threw bodies everywhere. He drew his pistol and kept firing. His face was covered in blood, but he was grinning. This was what he lived for. This moment of pure chaos. Lisa's pistol clicked empty. She dropped the magazine and slammed in a new one. Her hands were shaking, but she kept them steady through pure will. A warrior charged at her. She fired 3 times. It fell at her feet. She stepped over the body and kept shooting. Kate ran out of ammunition. She dropped her rifle and pulled out her backup pistol. A warrior swung its claw at her head. She ducked and shot it through the chest. It kept coming. She shot it again. And again. Finally it fell. She was breathing hard now, sweat running down her face. Jake reached Zarketh. The Overlord raised a massive plasma rifle and fired. Jake dove to the side. The bolt missed him by inches and melted a hole in the wall behind him. He rolled and came up shooting. His bullets sparked off Zarketh's armor. The Overlord laughed, a sound like metal tearing. "Your weapons cannot harm me, human. I am protected by the finest armor our technology can create." Jake aimed carefully and fired once. The bullet hit the plasma rifle's power cell. It exploded in Zarketh's hands. The Overlord screamed as the explosion took his right arms. Green blood sprayed across the floor. He stumbled backward, shock and pain in his eyes. The last of the elite warriors fell. Danny put 3 shots into its head to make sure it stayed down. The command center was suddenly quiet except for the sound of breathing. 6 humans stood among 20 dead Krell elite. They were all injured. They were all exhausted. But they were all alive. Jake walked slowly toward Zarketh. The Overlord tried to crawl away, leaving a trail of blood behind him, but he was too weak, too damaged. Jake stood over him and pulled off his helmet. For the first time, the Overlord saw the face of his killer. Zarketh's translator warbled, "What are you? How can you be so good at killing?" Jake's face was emotionless. "Because we had to be. You conquered a dozen worlds before joining the fight. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other. We perfected war. We made it into science. You are soldiers. We are survivors. The galaxy will fear you," Zarketh said. His voice was getting weaker. "They will see what you really are." "I know," Jake replied. He raised his rifle one last time. "But you will not be there to see it." He pulled the trigger. Zarketh's body went still. The Supreme Commander of the Krell Dominion was dead. "The mission was complete. We need to move," Kate said. "This place will be crawling with warriors in minutes." Jake nodded. "Ryan, tell Greg we are coming out hot. He needs to be ready." Ryan was already typing. Message sent. "He says the ship is ready." Danny placed his last charges around the command center. "This will cause a nice distraction." They ran back through the corridors. Warriors tried to stop them, but the humans were moving too fast now. They used every trick they knew. Grenades behind them. Bullets ahead of them. Always moving. Always fighting. They reached the maintenance port. The Wraith was still there, engines hot. Greg had the door open. Get in, he shouted. They piled into the ship. Danny was last. He looked back at the station and triggered his charges. The command center exploded in a massive fireball. The entire station shook. Alarms screamed. Warriors scattered in confusion. "Go," Jake ordered. Greg pushed the engines to full power. The Wraith shot away from the station like a bullet. Krell ships tried to follow, but they were too slow. The human ship vanished into the darkness, leaving chaos behind. Inside the Wraith, 6 people sat in silence. They were alive. Against all odds, they had survived, but they all knew that something had changed. They had removed their masks. The galaxy had seen what humans really were, and nothing would ever be the same again. The medal ceremony took place 3 months after the mission. Jake stood on a raised platform in the Coalition's Grand Hall, surrounded by representatives from 43 different species. Cameras recorded everything. The whole galaxy was watching. Admiral Vexthor pinned medals to each person's chest, gold symbols that meant honor and bravery. Kate stood stiff and uncomfortable in her dress uniform. Danny could not stop fidgeting. Lisa looked tired. Ryan kept glancing at the exits. Nina's face showed nothing. Greg seemed older somehow, like the mission had aged him years in just a few days. The Admiral gave a long speech about courage and sacrifice. He talked about how the team had saved countless lives, how they had turned the tide of the war, how they were heroes. The audience applauded. Cameras flashed. But Jake noticed something. The other species did not look grateful. They looked scared. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Diplomats and military officers from across the Coalition came to shake hands and offer congratulations. But they kept their distance. No one wanted to stand too close to the humans. They smiled and said nice things, but their eyes told a different story. They had seen the footage. They had watched humans move through that Krell station like death itself. They knew the truth now. Kate left early. She could not stand the fake smiles and empty words. She went back to her quarters and poured herself a drink. Then another. Then another. She tried to sleep but saw Krell warriors every time she closed her eyes. Their faces as they died. The sound of her rifle. The smell of blood. Danny stayed at the reception longer, drinking and telling jokes. But the jokes were darker than usual. Harder. When someone asked him how it felt to kill so many, he just smiled and said it felt like work. The diplomat who asked quickly found an excuse to leave. 2 weeks after the ceremony, the council called a private meeting. Only high-ranking military personnel were allowed to attend. Jake was there, along with a dozen human officers and representatives from the major coalition species. The mood in the room was tense. A Velkari diplomat spoke first. Her species was one of the oldest in the coalition, with traditions going back thousands of years. "We must discuss the human question," she said. "The mission against the Krell was successful, yes, but the methods used were disturbing. The level of violence was unnecessary. Unnecessary. A human admiral named Helen Craft stood up. She was 60 years old with gray hair and hard eyes. Commander Morrison's team accomplished what your fleets could not. They ended the war. How can you call that unnecessary? They killed over 300 Krell warriors, another alien said. He was from a species that resembled giant birds. Many of those deaths were excessive, brutal, not in keeping with coalition standards of warfare. Admiral Craft's voice was cold. The Krell did not follow coalition standards. They destroyed entire fleets. They killed civilians. They showed no mercy. Should we have sent diplomats to politely ask them to stop? The Velkari diplomat raised her hand for silence. We are not questioning the results. We are questioning what those results reveal about humanity. You are efficient killers, perhaps too efficient. It makes the rest of us wonder what would happen if you ever turned that efficiency against the coalition itself. The room went quiet. There it was. The real fear. Not that humans were too violent, but that humans might be too good at violence. We propose restrictions, the bird-like alien said. Limits on human military operations. Oversight committees. Reviews of tactics and weapons. Nothing personal. Just precautions. Jake had been silent through the whole meeting. Now he spoke, his voice quiet but clear. You want to put chains on us. We want to ensure the safety of all coalition members, the Velkari said carefully. You want to make sure we cannot do to you what we did to the Krell, Jake replied. You invited us into your coalition. You asked for our help, we gave it, and now you are afraid of us, no one denied it. They could not. It was the truth. The meeting ended with no clear decision. But Jake knew what was coming. The council would pass their restrictions. They would limit human military involvement. They would try to push humanity back into the box they thought we belonged in. Peaceful, civilized, safe. 1 month later, Jake was reassigned. No explanation, no ceremony, just orders sending him to a training facility on the edge of coalition space. It was a nice way of saying he was being removed from active duty. The council did not want the Reaper where he could cause problems. His team scattered. Kate took a job teaching at a military academy on Mars. She tried to be normal, but normal did not fit anymore. She jumped at loud noises. She could not stand in crowds without calculating firing lines and escape routes. Her students thought she was strange. She thought they were soft. Danny found work on a mining colony using his explosives expertise to break apart asteroids. It was safe work. Boring work. He drank too much and slept too little. Sometimes he woke up screaming, back on that Krell station with warriors coming from every direction. His co-workers learned to leave him alone. Lisa joined a civilian medical ship that traveled between colonies. She thought helping people would make her feel better. But every patient reminded her of the team. Every injury made her think about the mission. She saved lives every day, but it did not erase the faces of the Krell she had killed. Nothing could erase those. Ryan disappeared into the intelligence community. No one knew exactly what he did, but rumors said he was monitoring coalition communications, making sure no one was planning anything against humanity. He rarely slept. He trusted no one. The paranoia that served him well on the mission had become his entire life. Greg retired completely. He bought a small house near the ocean and tried to forget about space. But some nights he would look up at the stars and remember flying the Wraith, the speed, the danger, the feeling of being alive. His quiet life felt like dying slowly. Nina took a security job protecting diplomats. It was easy work, too easy. She felt like she was wasting away. Her skills were getting dull. Her reflexes were slowing. She needed combat like other people needed air, but there was no combat. Just boring protection details and diplomatic functions. 6 months passed. Jake spent his days training coalition soldiers who would never fight like humans. He taught them tactics, but they always added rules, always added restrictions. They wanted to win wars without being willing to do what winning required. It was frustrating and pointless. Then the reports started coming in. A new enemy, something from the galactic core, ships that appeared and disappeared, colonies that went silent. At first, the council thought it was pirates or raiders, but the pattern was wrong. Too organized, too efficient. Then they found a converted world. Everything biological was gone. Buildings remained, but they were empty. No bodies, no blood, just silence. And machines. Thousands of machines, all connected, all thinking as one. The Nexus had arrived. The Coalition sent a fleet to investigate. 300 ships, heavily armed. They jumped into the system and found themselves surrounded. Nexus vessels poured from every direction. The battle lasted 4 hours. Only 12 Coalition ships escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. The Council held emergency meetings. Their best strategists studied the enemy, but nothing worked. The Nexus adapted to every tactic instantly. It learned from every battle. It was a collective intelligence that made decisions faster than any biological mind could follow. The Coalition was losing badly. 2 more fleets were destroyed. 5 more worlds went silent. Panic spread through Coalition space. Some species began secret negotiations with the Nexus, hoping to be converted peacefully. Others prepared to run. The alliance that had lasted 2,000 years was falling apart. On a quiet morning, Jake was running through training exercises when Admiral Vexthor arrived unannounced. The reptilian commander looked older now. His scales were dull. His movements were slow. The war was wearing on him. "Commander Morrison," he said, "walk with me." They walked through the training facility in silence. Finally, Vexthor spoke. "The Council has authorized a new task force. No restrictions. No oversight, no rules. Complete autonomy to fight the Nexus, however, is necessary." Jake stopped walking. "They are that desperate?" "Yes, we are losing this war. Nothing we try works. The Nexus is too advanced, too fast, too smart. We need someone who thinks differently, someone who is not bound by our traditions and rules." "You need humans," Jake said. "We need you," Vexthor corrected. "You and your team. The Council has agreed to lift all restrictions. You will have access to any weapon, any technology, any resource. Whatever it takes to stop the Nexus." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the only question that mattered. "Will I have my team?" "All of them," Vexthor promised. "Plus anyone else you need, ships, weapons, technology we banned because it was too dangerous, everything. The galaxy is dying, Commander. We need someone who understands death." Jake looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, his team was scattered, broken, trying to be normal. But normal had never fit them. They were warriors, and warriors needed war. "I will gather them," Jake said. "Give me 1 week," Vexthor nodded. 1 week. Then we go hunting." Jake watched the Admiral leave. Then he opened a communication channel and started making calls. One by one, he contacted his team. He did not need to say much. They all understood. The mask was coming off again. The Phantom was a ship built for killing. It had stealth systems so advanced they bent light around the hull. Weapons that the Coalition banned decades ago. Shields that could withstand direct hits from capital ships. Looking at it made Jake smile. This was exactly what they needed. His team gathered in the briefing room. Kate looked better now, more focused. The fire was back in her eyes. Danny had stopped drinking and started preparing. Lisa seemed steadier, like having a purpose had fixed something inside her. Ryan was sharper, more alert. Greg moved with energy he had not shown in months. Nina looked dangerous again, ready to hunt. "The Nexus is different from the Krell," Jake explained. "They do not feel fear or pain. They do not get tired. They are machines controlled by a collective intelligence. Every unit shares information instantly. If one learns something, they all know it." "How do we fight that?" Lisa asked. "We do not fight their fleets," Jake said. "We fight their infrastructure. The Nexus operates through processing nodes, huge computer centers that coordinate their thinking. We find those nodes and destroy them. Make them stupid. Make them slow. Then the Coalition can fight them properly." Over the next 3 months, they hit 17 nodes across 5 star systems. Each mission was different. Each required new tactics. The Nexus tried to adapt, but humans were unpredictable. They used biological weapons that corrupted Nexus circuits, electromagnetic pulses that fried their systems, computer viruses that made them fight each other. One mission required them to infiltrate through a sewage system. Danny complained the entire time, but he still set his charges perfectly. The node exploded, taking 3 city blocks with it. They escaped through underground tunnels while Nexus units searched above them. Another mission was a straight assault. They came in fast and loud, overwhelming the defenses before the Nexus could respond. Kate provided covering fire from a rooftop 3 kilometers away. Her shots were perfect as always. Every bullet found a weak point in Nexus armor. A third mission required Ryan to hack directly into a node's systems. He sat in the middle of a firefight. fingers flying over his keyboard while Danny and Nina held off waves of Nexus constructs. When he finally broke through, the entire node shut down. Thousands of Nexus units stopped moving at once, frozen like statues. The victories added up. The Nexus began to struggle. Their coordination weakened. Their attacks became less effective. The coalition rallied and pushed back in several sectors. For the first time in months, there was hope. But victory came with a cost. During a raid on a manufacturing facility, Ryan was hit by plasma fire. The shot caught him in the chest, burning through his armor. Lisa tried to save him. She worked for 20 minutes using every technique she knew, but the damage was too severe. Ryan died in the Phantom's medical bay. Kate held his hand while Danny recited an old prayer their grandmother had taught them. Greg closed Ryan's eyes. Nina stood guard at the door, making sure no one disturbed their goodbye. Jake watched his youngest team member die and felt something break inside him. They spaced Ryan's body according to military tradition. Jake said a few words about courage and sacrifice. Then they released him into the void, watching as he drifted away into the stars. No one cried. They were too tired for tears. They just stood in silence and remembered. After that, something changed in the team. They stopped taking prisoners. They stopped showing mercy. Every Nexus construct they found was destroyed completely, burned until nothing remained. Jake knew they were going too far, becoming the monsters the galaxy thought they were, but he could not stop them. This was what war did to good people. Coalition intelligence found the Nexus Prime node, the central consciousness that controlled everything. It was located deep in the galactic core, protected by 10,000 warships and shields that could withstand star-level radiation. Getting close was supposed to be impossible. Jake developed a plan. The Phantom would approach disguised as debris from a destroyed Nexus ship. Once inside the defensive perimeter, they would dump their entire antimatter reserve into the Prime node's power core. The resulting explosion would destroy everything within 10,000 kilometers, including them. Admiral Vexthor refused to authorize it at first. "This is suicide," he said. "You will all die." "Yes," Jake agreed. "But the war will end. Is not that worth 6 lives?" The Admiral had no answer. In the end, he approved the mission. What choice did he have? The Nexus was winning. This was their last chance. Kate, Danny, Lisa, Greg, and Nina all volunteered immediately. They had come too far to turn back. They had lost too much. If they had to die, they would die taking humanity's enemy with them. The approach went exactly as planned. The Phantom drifted through the Nexus fleet, its systems making it look like wreckage. Nexus scanners swept over them repeatedly. Each time they showed nothing suspicious. Just debris from another battle. Greg's hands were steady on the controls. He had been flying for 30 years, but this was his finest work. Every movement was perfect. Every adjustment was precise. He brought them closer and closer to the Prime node, threading between warships that could have vaporized them with a single shot. Danny armed the antimatter charges. His hands did not shake. This was what he had always been meant for. One last perfect explosion, the biggest one of his career. He almost wished he could see it from the outside. Lisa prepared medical supplies they would never use. She knew it was pointless, but she did it anyway. Old habits died hard. She thought about all the people she had saved over the years. Hundreds of lives. Maybe thousands. She hoped that was enough to balance what she had done. Kate and Nina stood watch, rifles ready. If anything went wrong, they would hold off the Nexus as long as possible. Give the others time to complete the mission. They did not speak. They did not need to. After all these years, they understood each other perfectly. The Phantom touched the Prime node's outer hull. Alarms blared across the Nexus network. They had been discovered. Warships broke formation and turned toward them. Energy weapons began to charge, but it was too late. Jake activated the antimatter sequence. 30 seconds until detonation. He used them to address his team one final time. "Thank you for following me into hell. Thank you for being the best team I could have asked for. The galaxy will remember us as monsters. Let them. We know what we really were. We were the ones who stood when no one else could." "We were humanity," Kate smiled. "It was an honor, Commander." "Best job I ever had," Danny added. Lisa closed her eyes. "See you on the other side." Greg's voice was calm. "Been a hell of a ride," Nina said nothing. She just nodded once. That was enough. The antimatter detonated. The explosion was larger than a collapsing star. It vaporized the prime node instantly. The shockwave spread outward, annihilating the defensive fleet. Energy cascaded through Nexus networks, overwhelming every safeguard, corrupting every system. Their collective consciousness shattered into a million fragments. Across the galaxy, Nexus constructs froze. Without the prime node to coordinate them, they were lost, confused, vulnerable. Coalition forces moved in and destroyed them systematically. Within weeks, the war was over. When coalition ships arrived at the explosion site, they found only debris. No bodies, no survivors, just scattered metal and fading radiation. The Phantom's last transmission was simple. 5 words broadcast to every frequency. Mission accomplished. The Reaper sends his regards. The galaxy celebrated. Parades were held. Monuments were built. Jake Morrison and his team received the highest honors the Coalition could give. Their names were carved in stone. Their story was told to children. They became legends. But in private meetings, Coalition leaders spoke in whispers about what humanity represented. A species so good at violence that they defeated an enemy no one else could touch. A species that sacrificed their best without hesitation. A species that fought like demons and died like heroes. On Earth, 6 empty graves stood in a quiet cemetery overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Families gathered there every year. They told stories about the people they had lost. They laughed and cried and remembered. Kate's mother talked about her daughter's laugh. Danny's brother remembered his jokes. Lisa's sister spoke of her kindness. Ryan's parents described his brilliance. Greg's children recalled his wisdom. Nina's family honored her fierce loyalty. They spoke of Jake's quiet strength. The way he made people feel safe. The way he never asked anyone to do something he would not do himself. The way he led from the front. Always. Years passed. The galaxy changed. New threats emerged. New wars began. And whenever things got desperate, whenever the odds seemed impossible, Coalition leaders would remember. They would remember 6 humans who did the impossible. Who won a war everyone said could not be won. Who showed the galaxy what humanity truly was, not monsters. Not saviors. Just humans doing what humans have always done. Surviving. Fighting. Protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Refusing to give up even when death is certain. The Reaper had removed his mask. The galaxy had seen what lay beneath, and though it scared them, though it made them uncomfortable, they could not deny the truth. When everything was on the line, when extinction loomed, when all hope seemed lost, it was humanity that stood and said no. Because that is what humans do. They adapt, they overcome, they win, no matter the cost.